I'm really looking forward to talking about AC Milan, Tom, because they're back in the Champions League, of course, for the first time in 8 years. I genuinely thought that was a typo. 8 years since we saw Milan in the Champions League, but they're back. And I'd be interested to know how you would characterize their business this summer, how they're approaching squad building at Milan.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, I think of Milan as a kind of vintage Champions League side from when I was younger, watching the likes of Pato, Ronaldinho, Thiago Silva in his pomp, Dida. Like, there's some very big names there, and the kind of Champions League nights for me were defined sometimes by watching them. So yeah, definitely weird that it's been 8 years, but they're looking to really gear up for that and both challenge for the title and challenge to be in the Champions League again next year. And if you look at their business, I mean, they signed Fikayo Tomori from Chelsea for a little under 30 million, which I think the execs at the club, when they see the fee that Ben White goes for, I think there's a good consensus that they've done a good bit of work there for a player of Tomori's quality to get him for essentially half of Ben White, and he's probably on similar wages. That's very, very good business. They replaced Donnarumma, who's obviously left to go to PSG, with Mike Maignan from Lille, who obviously won the title last year. He's probably the best goalkeeper in France. He's a good age. The fee is around 11-12 million. Again, that just looks like good business. If you can keep him for 5 years, then the price of your goalkeeper per year is going to be really pretty low, and that's good for a player of his caliber. Bunch of kids. Yassine Adli, who's going to stay in Bordeaux for another year, can play kind of in a bit deeper in midfield, probably around where Benassa plays at the moment, or Kessié, and him for around 7 mil again it just looks good. And you look down the list and there's just a lot of guys which they're spending kind of lowish fees and they're good quality players, so that's good. But the other stuff I like as well is they use the kind of loan market really well. Brahim Diaz on a 2-year loan from Real Madrid, with, it's not got an obligation, but he's 22. Again, wages probably aren't much of a problem, and he's a really good quality player, so that's nice. Timo Bakayoko, 2-year loan, low fee. I think there's an obligation to buy at the end if certain clauses are met, and he's someone that I think the higher ups of the club really enjoyed when he was there the first time, and I think they've struggled to get him back for a second stint after. And then Olivier Giroud, who is your starting striker, costs shy of €1 million. And I just think Giroud is criminally underrated, both as someone who, followed him in his time at Arsenal a lot. Any numbers you look at for him in Chelsea are just like very, very good. I think we did a review of 2020 piece, I think, and he was top of goals per 90 in the Premier League. Link-up play is always really good, and it's just a very nice system, a kind of 4-2-3-1 with him at the top of it, and it just works really well. So yes, overall for them, their business, it's a bit Brighton-esque, where it's not just in one basket. They've gone for the kids, they've gone for these guys that are a decent age and good fee, a couple of older guys in Giroud and Alessandro Florenzi as well from Roma for kind of low cost loans or buys. So yeah, overall a lot of interesting moves, and hopefully means that they have a good Champions League campaign.
There's one that really stands out in terms of sort of human interest story, and that's Junior Messias. I can only imagine that in Italy they are making the comparison with Jamie Vardy in the UK, Tom, because of a fairy tale meteoric rise over the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Messias is one who I think moved to Italy from Brazil when he was 18, 19, I think, and kind of turned pro and was playing around like the Italian lower divisions, a la Vardy in England, and only turned pro at 24. So was plying his trade in the Italian 4th division in, I think, 2017, 2018. Came through the leagues, moved to Crotone in 2019-20, I think, was there in Serie B, was there in Serie A, and had a decent season last time around in this kind of, he had quite a free role in a 3-5-2 in one of the midfield spots, and was doing a lot of dribbling, a lot of shooting, a lot of stuff that probably caught the eye. And Milan have lost Hakan Çalhanoğlu to Inter. He's going to replace Christian Eriksen for them, so that kind of made sense. His contract was up. He was wanting a big raise, I think. And yeah, Messias is, he's a bit out of step for Milan. Like, it's a loan from Crotone, and they were linked with Romain Favre from Brest in Liga, and Adam Unas from Napoli, who are both, younger. There's more value there, you think, if you can get those in. But they've gone for this kind of dynamic midfielder who's, I mean, if you've read the piece, you've seen his kind of pizza chart. He's just, all carries, all shots, and all the vibes, really, which I think is maybe not what you want from a squad building point of view, but from a kind of like, I want to watch this guy play football point of view, it's a good signing.
Spot on. Atletico Madrid in Spain, the one to talk about, because they're the champions of La Liga, and winning the title is one thing, but retaining it, as we know, quite another thing entirely. And I find the transfer window following a title win absolutely fascinating as a topic, because mostly teams don't add too much for, I think, obvious reasons, really. And, Mark talked about narratives that come with hindsight. The big one, if a team doesn't retain the title, is they didn't do well enough in the summer to refresh the squad, or add some players with extra motivation, or add quality in areas they needed it to. So I'm interested to know, Tom, how Atleti have approached it this summer.
Yeah, I think they've kind of gone all in at the top end of the pitch with Rodrigo de Paul from Udinese, Matheus Cunha from Hertha Berlin, and Antoine Griezmann as well on deadline day, which I think was a big shock. I think that's a year loan with an obligation for around 40 million euros. So considering they flipped him to Barcelona 2 years ago for 120 million, that's very, very smart business. But it's interesting, like De Paul is a very attack-minded midfielder. And when you think of like the kind of classic Atleti midfielders and like Gabi and Koke, and obviously Saul is moved on now to Chelsea on loan, but they're more kind of, I can't think of the right word for it, but they're almost, very rigid in what they do. They're not really that expressive, and I feel that that's what De Paul is. So it's interesting to see how he's going to fit in this team. Again, looking at his kind of chart on the side, and you look at what he does when you watch him, the play runs through him a lot, and it just doesn't feel like the profile of an Atleti midfielder. So especially a centre mid. So where he lines up is yet to be seen. But Cunha is one that is a very, I mean, Workman likes probably a better phrase for him. He loves to press on the front, very good energy, very good presser, good with the ball at his feet. I think he could have been a nice Firmino replacement had Liverpool kind of look to move on that early, but he very much feels like a kind of Costa-ish like player. Will work from the front, is good with the ball at his feet, and he's not a kind of natural goal scorer, but you put him in this system around Griezmann and Joao Felix, and he could elevate his game there. And then Griezmann, I mean, we all know the qualities of him. He knows the system so well. Yeah, that's just a nice move. I mean, he's getting on a bit now, but you still think that if you want to retain the title, if you want to add more firepower in a year that Barca have got demonstrably weaker, Real haven't really added too much. I think all of this business kind of is good for Atleti and gives them a strong chance of the title again this year.